Good evening and welcome to the Coon Rapids City Council meeting for Tuesday, December 17th, 2024. If you would please join us and rise for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please call the roll.
Councilmember Griscoviac.
Here.
Councilmember Rayrauer.
Here.
Councilmember Novak.
Here.
Councilmember Geisler.
Here.
Councilmember Armstrong.
Here.
Councilmember Carlson.
Here.
Mayor Cook.
Here. All right, well, why don't we adopt this evening's agenda?
Mr. Mayor,
Councilmember Geisler.
I'll make a motion to adopt the agenda with one modification, that we will move number 2 from the consent agenda into proclamations and presentations.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve the agenda with that one change. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that motion carries, which means the very first thing on our agenda is to adopt a resolution 24-108 accepting a grant from the St. Paul Area Association of Realtors. Ms. Ring, do you want to start at the amble or what do you want to do? Oh, well, you can, I didn't know if you wanted to introduce it first, or you want to just come up first?
Can we come up?
Absolutely.
That would be great.
I'll meet you right up front. Okay, who wants this then?
I'm going to start off.
Mr. Brown.
All right. I thought I would start off because the city has had a long partnership with the St. Paul Area Association of Realtors going back over a decade, I would say. They've been an important partner for us as we develop various housing policies. Obviously, maintaining the city's housing stock, ensuring affordability are important things to our city, and having a partnership with local realtors is an important component of that. So in addition to helping us on policy matters, we've partnered with SPAR on now an annual realtor forum that brings in realtors from around the region to the city so we can share our various housing resources that they can then share with their clients, and just share in more general terms all the good things we have going on in our community. So in the recent years, as SPAR has developed its new Key Communities program, we look for opportunities to work together even further. One of the components of that program is a placemaking grant opportunity, which we looked for some opportunities and felt one of our priorities would be a good fit for that. That is some banners and other placemaking components along the Coon Rapids Boulevard corridor, which has been an important corridor to us. So we worked with them to apply for their grant as well as a National Association of Realtors grant to fund some new banners along Coon Rapids Boulevard.
Yes, that's right. Thank you, Matt. I don't know if Steve has the visual, but if we can remind everyone that there's a pedestrian bridge that is actually starting construction down in the Port River Walk area. And within that corridor, we're actually going to use the funds. Wonderful. There is the bridge, so it's actually going to connect the Coon Creek Regional Trail. And if you can picture this down by the new Central Homes development, Lilliput, Coon Rapids Boulevard, and Zilla Street. So it will connect across. People can bike and they can walk. But we're actually going to use the grant funding for the mechanical pieces that are attached to the lamp posts. And we have some original designs that have come out of our marketing department. And it's really going to beautify the area down there. So what a statement between the bridge and these beautiful flags. And we can't do it without the mechanical pieces. So the funding from St. Paul Area Association of Realtors, what a beautiful placemaking that will have in the community. So the city wants to thank you, and I just want to take a minute to have you introduce yourselves, and we'll accept this grant money.
Great, thank you so much. We appreciate the opportunity to work together and collaborate to make our cities better. We cover a 12-county area in the Twin Cities. And so on behalf of our nearly 8,000 members, we appreciate and look forward to that continued collaboration. I'm Amy Peterson. I'm the 2024 SPAR president. We have our CEO, Gabe Walsh, here with us, and one of our government affairs directors, Becky Wetscheid, who has also been working very closely in terms of putting those details together. So we thank them, and again, thank you for the opportunity to work together.
So with that, Mayor, we turn it over to the council.
This has been a long time coming. How many years ago did we start trying to find a key project? Like 4 years ago? Yeah, I was like, okay, forget it. Well, and then all of a sudden I went, hey, they've got one. That's beautiful. So we're very appreciative of this, and we're going to adopt the ordinance accepting this, but we're not going to get any big cardboard checks tonight or anything, right? Okay, all right. I'm always wondering what we got for props, you know. All right, very good. This is actually a really good time. Sidebar, the pedestrian bridge is a regional trail connection, right, Councilmember Carlson?
Absolutely.
We get hammered on the social media. Why didn't they put it by the high school? It's like, no, it's not just a walking, it's not just a crosswalk. It's actually part of our regional trail system, and that we have spent so much time, money, energy redeveloping that whole area down there. All the new features along Coon Boulevard, reconstructed, new lights, these are going to be an awesome addition to that. So it's really going to be nice. Okay, what else? Are we done? All right, well, thank you very much. I'm going to start with Amy then, I guess. Thank you very much. Gabe, it's nice meeting you tonight. Becky, good seeing you again. Nothing to say tonight?
Don't give me a mic. You don't want to hear me sing some Christmas carols.
Wait, we'll do that. Oh. Thank you very much for everything. Thank you. All right, so let's see. So we need to actually accept that then. Do we want to do that now?
Or is it part of, okay.
Or is, because we've already removed it from the consent agenda.
Yes.
We should do it now then?
So, Mr. Mayor,
Councilmember Geisler?
I will make a motion to adopt Resolution 24-108, accepting a grant from the St. Paul Area Association of Realtors.
Second?
Motion by Geisler, second by Novak. Is there discussion?
Mr. Mayor?
Councilmember Geisler?
I would just make a comment, because we didn't talk about how much this is. And so it is $7,000 from the National Association of Realtors and $2,500 from SPAR, for a total of $9,500 to purchase these banners, which is fabulous. And we thank them.
Absolutely. All right, any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? And that motion carries. Like, who would oppose that, though?
Not sure.
All right, and now we're going to item 1, which is to approve the minutes from the December 3rd meeting.
Motion to approve the minutes, Mr. Mayor? Second.
Motion by Carlson and a second by Armstrong. I have to go up here and see now, where are we at? 2, oh, 1. Get really confused. Okay, any discussion or corrections? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? And the motion carries. 2 abstentions, Councilmembers Rayrauer and Novak. That was what I was looking for. All right. Item, now on our consent agenda, we have 3 items left on our consent agenda. The first one is item 3 on this evening's agenda, and that's to receive the schedule of electronic payments. We're just receiving the schedule of electronic payments from November 27th, 2024 to December 11th, 2024. If you're ever wondering what the city spends money on, go into the council agenda, and it's all right there. The next item on our consent agenda is to adopt Resolution 24-114, accepting donations and business sponsorships. We have multiple that between October 1st and December 31st, the city received donations from CR Sports Bar, Competition Cheer, Advanced First Aid, and Community Strength Foundation, the family of Ralph Wiley, Bob and Linda Fredrickson, Kathy Steckel, and then we have several anonymous donors, and then we have a donation from the Club Car Wash and North American Development Group Riverdale Village, and we would like to thank all of the donors and businesses that supported events and programs. So we're looking to adopt Resolution 24-114 to accept contributions made to the city between October 1st and December 31st, 2024. And the next item, which is the final on our consent agenda, is to adopt Resolution 24-113, appointing George Blindauer to the Arts Commission. George has submitted an application for the Arts Commission. After discussion with the applicant at the December 10th meeting, the Arts Commission recommends he be appointed to the Arts Commission with a term expiring December 31st, 2027. So we're looking to adopt Resolution 24-113, appointing George Blindauer, or Blindauer, and I apologize. Was it the second one? Blindauer? Okay, whichever one it is, you are getting appointed to the Arts Commission with a term expiring December 31st, 2027, and that's our consent agenda.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilmember Rayrauer?
so glad to welcome George to the Arts Commission. Love all of our commissioners. We couldn't do it without you. You do a lot of important work for the city, and thank you to all of those that donated and did business sponsorships. We greatly appreciate it. And with that, I make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Motion by Rayrauer and a second by Geisler. Is there further discussion or questions on the consent agenda? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? And that is adopted. Item 6 is to hold a currency exchange license public hearing and consider license renewal for Your Exchange. Ms. Lensmeyer, is anything you want me to go over, or you want me to just read the discussion here?
Mr. Mayor, it's just a standard protocol for this type of license renewal, which requires us to hold a public hearing and then request that the council concur with the renewal of that currency exchange license.
Very good. This was noticed in the paper, and the Minnesota Department of Commerce conducted a state-level background review on the appropriate personnel. No matters which would impact concurrence with the license were discovered, and their fee schedule is attached to our agenda. Does anybody have any questions on this before I open the public hearing? Hearing none, I will open the public hearing on the, as we consider the license renewal for Your Exchange. Is anybody here to address council for the public hearing on the license renewal for Your Exchange? All right, seeing nobody here for that public hearing, we will close the public hearing.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilmember Geisler?
I will make a motion to concur with the Minnesota Department of Commerce renewal of the 2025 currency exchange license for Your Exchange, 3070 Coon Rapids Boulevard.
Second.
Motion by Geisler and a second by Rayrauer. Is there discussion on this? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? And that motion carries. We're up to item 7, consider adoption of Ordinance 2320, authorizing the sale of real estate, 83XX Mississippi Boulevard. Does anybody have any questions of Mr. Brown? This was introduced at the last meeting. All right. This is just a sliver of city-owned property that there's nothing that we have any use for, and it's not big enough to be built on, and so we are just selling it to a willing neighbor who would like to purchase it.
So, Mr. Mayor,
Councilmember Geisler.
I'll make a motion to adopt Ordinance 2320, authorizing conveyance of the property at 83XX Mississippi Boulevard to Travis and Mallory Dykma, and motion to approve the purchase agreement, motion to authorize the mayor and city manager to execute a deed, and motion authorizing staff to execute other closing documents as necessary to effectuate the closing.
Second.
Wow. We had a motion by Geisler, and I'm going to give it to Novak because it was just close. Motion by, so do we have any further discussion on this, or any discussion on this?
Mr. Mayor?
Councilmember Novak?
I just think that it makes sense to do this. The lot is technically very large at .35 acres, but it's only 50 feet wide. Not a whole lot you can do with this, and so let the people who want it have it at a fair price.
All right, any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that motion carries. Item 8, consider adoption of ordinance 2319, amending the municipal stormwater rates, charges, and collections, City Code Section 13-1300. Mr. Hammer, anything else you want to add to this from last meeting?
No, Mr. Mayor, it's just the adoption following the introduction from last meeting, but I'm happy to answer any questions.
Anybody have any questions of Mr. Hammer?
Okay, Mr. Mayor?
Councilmember Geisler.
It's my last meeting, I'll just make them all ready. Go on and, So I'll make a motion to adopt ordinance 2319, amending chapter 13-1300, stormwater drainage utility.
Second?
Motion by Geisler, second by Carlson. Is there discussion on this or questions of Mr. Hammer?
Mr. Mayor?
Councilmember Kraskowiak?
Yes, I do have a couple of questions on this, some concerns. And, well, let me start by saying, while I agree with the rate structure that's going to be coming up later in the meeting, I think that we're missing an opportunity with this in changing some of the language in this ordinance because we're not addressing the fact that Coon Rapids still has agricultural land in the city, specifically a couple of sod farms. So I would like to see a designation in here. If we're going to go to the effort to change this ordinance, why aren't we including a definition for a farm in here that has a much lower REF factor than 0.2? And so the reason I brought that up, and I brought this up in a couple of work sessions already, is these sod farms are large acreages, and even if their REF is 0.2, multiply that by the acreage, and I believe these residents are paying an unfair amount into the municipal stormwater drainage fund. You know, we're talking $3,000, $4,000 a year for those properties, whereas a residential property is, $50 or whatever it is. So I really do think that we should look at, if we're going to change this, let's take a look at a different designation. And when you think about it, they're in the same designation as parks. And parks are basically a public entity, and the expenses associated with that are shared amongst the entire city of 60,000 people or so, whereas these sod farms are small businesses, and it's a very, in my opinion, an unfair burden on those landowners. And I'd like to have a discussion as to why aren't we making that designation?
Mr. Mayor?
Councilmember Novak?
If we want to walk down that road, I'd like to know certain things like, for example, in a sod farm, how much fertilizer is used? What other chemicals are used there? What type of substances are going off in that runoff water that are going to require cleanup as opposed to a public park, which basically is just sits there?
Well, a public park puts fertilizer on their lawn too, just like a sod farm does. And I'm not an expert on any of that, but I do know this. The sod farms, like wetlands, they absorb a ton of our rainwater. That is not all going into our storm drains, like what's coming off the cities, what's coming off parking lots, what's coming off, schools and cemetery driveways and things like that. I really think that we need to take a look at it. In addition, these sod farms they've been good stewards of the land. They've been, good partners in our community. We've got easements with them, with the county, with the city. They help us with our goose management plan. I just think there should be a designation for farm or agricultural.
Mr. Mayor?
Councilmember Geisler?
I can appreciate what Councilmember Kraskowiak is talking about, but we did have a big discussion at a work session a couple of weeks ago. And as we were having all of those different conversations, when we were looking at, would it make sense to have this designation, where we would need to then kind of split off, well, what was the housing side of land and what was there, And if we looked at how would we create the REF for that land comparative to our neighbors and how that, it ended up looking that if we made those changes, they were going to be paying more. And so I thought it was our consensus generally that while having an agricultural designation may make sense, it would result in these people paying more for how it would have to get architected into the system. And thus, it was better for them, for us to not put that agricultural designation into play. So to me, if people really want to dig into it again, it would take a long time, but I don't see rehashing that same conversation that we had a couple of weeks ago makes any sense.
Well, Councilmember Geiser, if I might, we did talk about that, but what we didn't talk about is adding a separate designation for farms that has a residential equivalency factor smaller than 0.2. We could make a separate designation for these farms with a REF of 0.05. You multiply that times their acreage, and they're still, even at that rate, paying their fair share into the municipal water fund. I mean, a municipal drain system, storm drain system in the city is a shared resources. It's just that these farms are paying it's not a fair, they're paying an inordinate amount into the fund.
Mr. Mayor?
Councilmember Novak?
Councilmember Kraskowiak, I am going to push back a little bit on that one.
Fine.
Public parks aren't designed to grow their grass so that it can be cut up off of the land and sold. Yes, they might be putting out some kind of chemical, might be putting out some kind of fertilizer to keep the grass healthy, but again, that land is being cultivated for the specific use of cutting off grass, cutting off topsoil, and we don't know if the REF factor there is greater or less than that 0.2. You can't say with any certainty that the effect of that farming is actually going to be greater or less than, and I'd like those numbers. I don't disagree that we might want to have a farming category, and I think I told you that evening at the workshop, but without having those numbers, we just can't say in a blanket statement that they're paying too much.
Well, I appreciate that, and since you're disagreeing with me, I guess I have to push back a little bit on that too, because we're not experts in this. And we don't have the scientific data on it. And, I mean, and therefore, we're putting them into a category that it's never made sense, and I still don't think it makes sense. It's different than a park. Parks are manicuring that land. There's trails and there's other things happening in a park. And, you know, again, it's mostly, if you look at those sod farms after it rains, the water sits on the sod farm and soaks into the ground. It does exactly what storm drains have to do. They're doing that into the ground. It's not running off into the system.
Okay, so,
Mr. oh.
hey, I'm sorry, just a second here. So, just to explain this, REF is a residential equivalent
Oh, thank you.
factor.
Yeah, that makes
That means the ratio of the average volume of runoff generated by 1 acre of a given land use to the average amount of runoff generated by 1 acre of typical single-family land use during a standard rainfall event. Councilmember Kraskowiak, I actually tend to agree with you, because I think, plus our parks often have parking lots, and they often have impervious playgrounds and basketball courts or whatever. Would you be open to another workshop on this specific conversation? I don't think we're not going to come to terms on it tonight.
No.
But would you support this if we agree to discuss it again after the first of the year?
I think we're missing an opportunity to add that designation, and I know that we can, change our ordinances and, amend our ordinances all the time, and it really won't make that big a difference to these sod farms at this time. But I can't support this change without addressing that glaring issue that we have.
Okay.
But I'm I'm one of seven, right? So,
Well, I tend to agree with you, and I like that .05, that, you know.
Your Honor?
Councilmember Novak?
Again, I don't necessarily disagree with you. I just want the data. I want to know, if we're going to put this work in, I want to know that what we're agreeing on is factual, not just a number plucked out of thin air.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilmember Rayrower?
I have a question for you and then also a comment on it in general. When you were saying that, is it, are you saying that you would table this, or are you saying we could pass this and still have
Oh, no, I
another
was
work
suggesting
session?
that we pass this, but then
And
we.
then talk
But then
again. Okay.
we
Okay.
look at making an amendment to it.
Okay.
Because I don't think we're gonna have 4 people tonight that are gonna wanna go to the .05.
Okay.
no,
You know, I think we're gonna, I don't know how many we have. But we have a motion and a second on, right now for this.
And then, Mr. Mayor,
Councilmember Rayrower.
the comment I would have is, as of right now, I would agree with Councilmember Geisler and Novak that we should move forward with it as is, because we haven't been presented evidence to support changing it. As of right now, it would be considered agricultural, which again would be worse for them. So I think what the mayor has suggested makes sense to do.
I'm trying to remember if we saw the scientific data on any of these numbers.
keep in mind with the rate change that's gonna happen on this, it's gonna be putting these numbers up into the, you know,
Yeah.
$5,000-$6,000 range
We
for
did
these farms.
see other city comparables and so on.
None with farms.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there further discussion on this?
Mr. Mayor,
Councilmember Carlson?
I also just wanted to point out too that, yeah, this land doesn't have parking lots and all the runoff areas that we would have in our parks and such like, so I think we do need to look at it a little bit differently.
So where do you want to go with it? Do you want to do something tonight or later?
I think it would be great to table it,
Oh,
but if not, we'll just go to a vote, and where we go is where we go.
Mr. Mayor?
Councilmember Geisler?
Before any consideration of a tabling, I would want to ask staff on, is there, because of having to set rates for next year, do we have kind of a timing that we need to get something done? Or could we wait, or the next council wait to do action in January or February without impacting things? To me, when we're setting the rates, we kind of have to take action now and then amend or do something later if we want to, versus not having something done, but.
Mr. Stemlettle?
Sure, Mayor and Council, keep in mind, part of this is related to a long-term look at what the infrastructure needs of the community are related to stormwater, and there's a lot of things going on there. One, in terms of aging infrastructure, but two, in terms of federal and state requirements that are coming down. And so, over the past year or so, staff has worked with financial consultant Ellers to look at our rate structure, including the REF factors, to determine what's the best model for Coon Rapids. So the REF piece of it, which you're discussing right now, is having some minor modifications, frankly, to it. And it's set up in a way where it sort of provides some base level assumptions about what a property is across the city. It's a real simple and effective way to apply that formula across properties in our city to generate a number. Ultimately, what we need, as this is an enterprise fund, so it's supposed to be self-sufficient, we need enough revenue over the course of the next 10 to 20 years to pay for those capital projects. So how that gets distributed across those types of property, is where that REF factor and formula come in. So you could look at splitting hairs, I guess, a little bit on some of those REF factors. In the end, you're looking at what's that number, and it's all relative to that base assumption, which is that residential, single-family home, essentially. And so 0.2 of that single-family home, it already does take into account the intensity of use on that property. And yes, there are unique parts of each property. It's not a perfect tool in that sense. So we rate schools the same way, or we're proposing to rate schools the same way. Well, there might be a little more impervious on one school compared to a different school. But it's an effective way to apply it evenly across all of the community. Our ordinance currently does and would continue to allow for, if there's some really abnormal or unique property that's got extra stormwater management, stormwater ponding, something different about it, the council can make exceptions to the stormwater rate. So we should, put that through the public process. We should have council consider the reasons why they're doing that. But,
Mr. Stemwell?
yeah,
I don't think you've answered her question.
I was getting there eventually. but I had a lot of thoughts going through my mind.
We'd like to get done sometime tonight.
Well, so in terms of the time, okay, yes, there's the long-term view. In terms of the timing, I mean, ultimately, you could pass the rate changes without passing the REF, and until such a time that those REF factors are changed, we would have to apply whatever the proposed rate structure is on the current REF. So if you table this and maybe don't get to it, or decide not to do anything about it, now, if you pass the rates and don't pass the REF factors and you want to talk about that, we could come back in January, February, and if we were pretty quick about it, we could implement something prior to the next billing cycle, which we had anticipated to do. Which one would that be?
May 1st.
May 1st. So the timing of that would be, we'd have to go through, depends on how much we change it, might have to reintroduce it, notice it, that sort of thing. So we'd have to be fairly quick about it, but I think it's possible to do that if necessary.
Okay, so let me just ask though, because, so right now, we're not proposing to change the REF for the sod fields. Like, we're modifying almost all of these, but we're not actually proposing to change that
Yeah,
one.
That is
right.
correct.
So if we pass this, we're not changing anything on that.
Correct, yeah, good point, yeah, that one isn't changing.
Okay. I can almost kind of go either way on this then, because if we don't pass this tonight, it's still going to remain the same for them.
For sod farm. I was thinking more globally about we are making some changes.
Yeah, no, right, and I appreciate that.
Well, Mr. Mayor,
Councilmember
just
Jaskoviak?
a point of clarification on this. If we leave this alone and pass this as is, it does affect the stormwater utility fees for all of those other categories, because we kind of looked at modeling the changes that we're making into that fee structure, so some areas don't see spikes in the new fee. Isn't that right? Didn't we kind of modify those in some ways to address that? I think that was part of your question.
Mr. Mayor, I can maybe clarify or confuse even more. Residential was shifted out. There is no residential equivalency. That is a residential, that's what it is. Every other rate is consistent with what Councilmember Graskowiak said, is changing, with the exception of open space. So while if you didn't do anything, it doesn't change the open space designation or the fee for those people, but it would hold all the other fees for everybody else. If you do pass it, it changes for everybody else but that open space. So for the example you're using of agriculture or open space, whether you pass this or not, it doesn't change anything for them with regard to their fees.
Yeah, that's fair.
The point that I would make you to, that with that conversation, one of the other reasons where at the work session that we said it didn't make sense was that we're talking one or two properties really within the city, and there is that exception, there is that appeal, that is that way to say, wait a minute, this doesn't quite fit for me, and that those residents have that opportunity to have that kind of a conversation. And so for me, it makes sense to move forward with the water plan, the stormwater plan that we've been working with our financial advisors on, to move this in place and look at that one-off for those couple of properties. And if, in looking at them, it makes sense down the road for, a change in that REF, or from open space and splitting out something to agriculture, that could be done at a later date and time. But I think it's, we need to be making the motion and passing it to keep everything going for everything else in the city.
Your Honor?
Councilmember Novak?
Yeah, I have to agree with that one completely. We are on a bit of a time crunch, and, again, looking for data, looking to be able to find that information out, that'd be the perfect time if a exception were to be filed. And at that point, then we could actually get that data and find out what the right way of doing this would be. If it's not going to change one way or the other, let's get everything done and let's allow them to come in, ask for the exception, get that data, and do what the right thing is at that point.
Mr. Mayor, I might, and you can see I'm kind of passionate about this one, and I agree with everyone on the council here. And Councilmember Geisler, sure, they do have that appeal process, and they can hire attorneys and spend tens of thousands of dollars to find the scientific data. If we're going to ask them to find the scientific data, then we're going to have that scientific data on every one of these other categories too, homes and cemeteries and schools and everything like that. So here's what I might suggest. If we could add a new category called farms, we know we have 2 of them in town. If we added a new category called farms, and instead of having an REF of 0.2, we have an REF of 0.05. Amend this to add that, and we have everything else is fine in the ordinance. They can appeal it. We can adjust the ordinance as necessary. You can amend it later if we need to. I think that would be fair.
So Councilmember Griscoviac, it would be agricultural then, right? Farm seems a little fuzzy, but agriculture seems more specific.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilmember Raybrower?
I would suggest actually making it sod farms, because anything agricultural other than this is going to be more intensive.
Okay. I'm good with that.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilmember Geisler?
we went through this ad nauseum in the work session and
Okay.
decided not. I think it's irresponsible to try and make that kind of a change on the fly.
Okay. Councilmember, Mr. Brody, if this gets voted down tonight, what happens? Are we better off tabling it, or we have a motion and a second right now?
If we vote it down, we'd have to start over, which we may have to start over anyways, depending on what the changes we make to the ordinance, if we bring it back. So if you vote to table it and it comes back and we think the change is significant enough, and I'm not sure, it probably is, then we would have to reintroduce it at the next one, then have an adoption at the next meeting after that.
Point of order.
Okay. Yes,
You said we have a motion and a second.
we do.
So Councilmember Griscoviac's point, is that a amendment to what we have going on, or?
Well,
No.
he hasn't made it as a.
No.
Just kind of floated it out there.
Mr. Samweddle?
Yeah, I mean,
I'm
I guess
sorry, I'm sorry, Brent.
my suggestion might be if council was willing to approve it and then direct staff to bring back a separate modification to the ordinance to consider that, or we could work session that in January and then introduce it after that. Frankly, that would be cleaner from my perspective, because then we'd sort of have the other components of the REF changes, we'd have the rate changes. It would just be these, really, we're talking about 2 properties then, so that's not going to affect much in terms of planning for billing and those other things down the
Okay.
road. So, if that might be a friendly amendment to the process where you would consider approval, direct staff to further research the idea of a sod farm designation, bring it back to a work session, and then we could take it from there.
Councilmember Griscoviac, you okay with that?
So,
I would be okay with that.
Well, I'm not asking about an amendment to the motion.
Oh.
No, I'm just,
Okay.
because we don't need to amend the motion.
wouldn't need to amend
You know,
it.
we just need to, if you're okay with that, we'll just,
I would like to see that happen, let me put it that way. The way it's written right now, I think we're missing the mark. There should be an agricultural in here with a lower REF. I don't see agricultural in the land use category. Did I miss that?
no, I think that's under designated open space or,
yeah, and Mr. Mayor, I just was going to clarify, because I'm happy to amend the motion to add that statement to say that, in addition to that adoption of the ordinance, to direct staff to look at an agricultural designation and the REF factor, and to work that with staff,
Okay.
or with council in 2025.
Mr. Mayor, I'd concur with that.
And that just gets it into the motion, that gets it into, that this is something that we are going to do.
Okay. Ms. Lensmeyer, do you have that?
I do, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. We have, the motioner has modified the motion, and the seconder has seconded. Is there further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed?
No.
That motion. We just can't make you happy.
I have to make sure it comes back to us. I'm on record here. Thank you.
All right, thank you for that.
Yeah.
Item 9 is to consider Resolution 24-112, calling for a public hearing. Are we ready to remove that from the table yet?
Looks like we have 7, so yes.
Oh, that's right, we were missing, we didn't have enough people, that's right.
Motion to remove from the table?
Second?
Motion by Geisler, second by Carlson to remove Resolution 24-112 from the table. And this was, all it is calling for a public hearing to vacate drainage and utility easements, 360 Coon Rapids Boulevard. So, does anybody have any questions on this, or do we want to move it forward?
Mr. Mayor, I'll make a motion to adopt Resolution 24-112, which calls for a public hearing on January 21st, 2025 for a vacation of drainage and utility easements.
Second.
Motion by Geisler, second by, was it Armstrong over
Yep.
there? All right. Is there discussion on this?
Mr. Mayor,
Councilmember Griscoviac?
did the parcels get combined? Is that what I'm seeing in this memo?
It's my understanding they did.
Okay,
I asked that same question.
okay, very good. All right.
All right, any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? And that motion carries, and we'll have the public hearing for that on January 21st, 2025. We're up to item 10. Consider adoption of ordinances 2321, 2322, 2323, 2324, and 2325. Cannabis business locations. This was introduced at the last meeting, right?
Correct.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions of this one?
Mr. Mayor?
Councilmember Rehrower?
Oh, Ms. Lensmeyer.
Mr. Mayor, if I may, before you
Okay.
consider
Yes,
this item,
Ms.
we'd
Lensmeyer.
request that you authorize summary publication. It's not in the request, but we would ask for that because that's a lot of pages.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Perfect. So, oh, well, that's right in the motion, though, and authorize summary publication, right?
What?
That one is my item.
Oh, sorry. Carry on.
It is.
Thank you.
Rosanna Dana, never mind.
Wow.
Mr. Mayor?
Councilmember Rehrower?
So Ms. Lensmeyer, I was going to ask you, does this basically meet the minimum requirements by the state statute as we make this amendment or ordinance?
Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Rehrower, we understand that it does. We may have to pivot as the rules come out, and we will be paying attention to what comes out through the
All
Office
right.
of Cannabis Management.
Great, thank you. So with that then, I will make a motion for planning case 24-30 that we adopt ordinances 2321, 2322, 2323, 2324, and 2325, amending city code sections 11-201, 11-701, 11-801, 11-903, and 11-1003, respectively, to regulate the locations of state-licensed cannabis retail and production businesses within the city and authorize summary publication of the amended city code sections.
Second.
After all that work, come on, somebody second it. We have a motion and a second. Do we have further discussion on this? And we continue to build the airplanes while we're flying, huh, Mr.
Yeah.
Brody? All right.
That is a true statement.
All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed?
Nay.
And the motion carries, 1 nay. Councilmember Novak. Item 11 is to consider adoption of ordinance 2326, adding chapter 5-3100, regulating cannabis businesses. And is this the one that you want summary
Yes, please.
publication? Okay. All right, and again, this was an introduction at the last meeting, so does anybody have any questions?
Mr. Mayor?
Your
Councilmember
Honor, if I could
Geisler?
just, I'm sorry, if I could just point out one thing. We did clarify this particular ordinance a little bit just to make it, we believed it, the location, distance restrictions and advertising limitations applied to all businesses, but we wanted to make sure that that was clear and that it didn't apply to all cannabis businesses, not just those licensed retail businesses. So we made that slight clarification. We don't think it changes the intent, and it wasn't substantive, so we're not asking to reintroduce it, but I did want to at least point that out.
All right, very good. Councilmember Geisler?
So make a motion to adopt ordinance 2326, adding chapter 5-3100, regulating cannabis businesses and authorizing summary publication.
Second?
Motion by Geisler, second by Carlson. Is there a discussion on this? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? And that motion carries. Item 12 is to consider resolutions 24-110, approving the year-end budget appropriations and amendments. Ms. Hanson?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. City Council, we're asking that you consider a resolution to amend the 2024 general fund budget to reallocate budget appropriation between the expenditure categories and various activities. Our city code places that legal level of authority at the category level of the expenditure within the activity. So as we near the end of the year, we take a look at our year-to-date information and update our year-end estimates and then compare that to our budget and are recommending net adjustments equal to 0. In addition, the resolution would authorize amending the 2024 and 2025 budget to carry forward $16,900 worth of items in the general fund and $970,293 in other funds from 2024 into 2025. These are items that we've identified that will not be purchased or received before the end of the year, so we want to carry forward that budget. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Anybody have any questions for Ms. Hanson?
Mr. Mayor,
Councilmember Griscoviac?
just one question, and that is the fund, or we upped the funding to the Emerald Ash Borer Fund, right, for all those ash trees. That's not in this because we already voted and did that, and the budget's already been adjusted that way?
Correct.
Okay.
Councilmember Griswold, when we brought forth the interfund loan,
Yeah.
we also amended the 2024 budget, and then the 2025 adopted budget includes the increased funding amount.
Okay. All right. Just couldn't find it in here, so I figured. Thank you.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor?
Councilmember Rerower?
I make a motion to approve Resolution 24-110, reallocating funds within the 2024 general fund budget and amending the 2024 and 2025 budgets.
Second.
Motion by Rerower and a second by Geisler. Is there further discussion on this item?
Mr. Mayor?
Councilmember Geisler?
I'd just like to thank our finance staff and Ms. Hanson. There's an awful lot of work that comes together with all the different budgets and making sure, especially at the year end, what needs to be accounted for in 2025, what's going to be in 2024, and making sure that we're dotting our i's, crossing our t's, and it's an awful lot of work. And I appreciate their dedication, because when you look at the things, there's just minor dollars that move back and forth, and that means that our city staff has done a really good job at planning and understanding what their budgets are and staying within the budgets and being able to deliver the services. So kudos.
Your Honor?
Councilmember Novak?
I'd just like to second that. I mean, the public doesn't probably know, but each of the council members gets a budget package that's probably this thick. And it all makes sense because of the hard work of that group right over there. And so, again, thank you so much. You guys make us look pretty good at the end of the year. And so that's probably not the easiest thing in the world to do. So, thank you.
All right. Other discussion? We have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? And that motion carries. Item 13 is to consider the 2025 workers' compensation coverage. And it looks like you are recommending option 1. Ms. Hanson?
Correct. Mr. Mayor, City Council, before you is our workers' compensation renewal for 2025. The proposed net deposit premium is a 12.9% increase over 2024, mostly related to an increase in our experience mod factor. That kind of does go up and down through the years, so it's not something that we're obviously working to lower that, but that factors into that net deposit premium. We are recommending using the retro rated option number 1. We've utilized that option since 1988 and have seen savings. So in the last 7 years, we've saved approximately $500,000 in premiums versus just paying the standard. So we're recommending that we elect that option again.
Very good. Any questions of Ms. Hanson?
Mr. Mayor?
Councilmember Rayrower?
Well, it seems pretty clear that we're going to want option 1. So I will make a motion to approve accepting option 1 of the retro-rated plans with the League of Minnesota Cities Insurance Trust.
Second.
Motion by Rayrower and a second by Griscoviac. Is there further discussion on this? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? And that motion carries. Item 14 is to consider Resolution 24-111, amending the 2025 fee schedule for stormwater utility fee changes. It's all you tonight.
So, just now, this is my last item. Mr. Mayor, City Council, so before you are we're requesting change the adopted fee schedule for 2025 for stormwater utility fees. As mentioned earlier, the Stormwater Fund is a self-supporting enterprise fund where the revenues are supposed to cover all related expenditures, capital investments, debt service, you name it. So it doesn't receive any other tax support of that nature. So we want to make sure that our rates are sufficient. Over the last year, we've worked with Ellers, our municipal advisor, to do a long-range study on our improvements, or our planned improvements. Our street program over the next few years is pretty capital intensive with stormwater infrastructure as well as some other mandates. So before you are the recommended changes. The first item we've already covered in the change of the city code as far as the REF. We are recommending an increase to the base stormwater drainage rate. So that's the main rate that the non-residential are calculated off of. So that's the equivalent of one acre. So we're recommending that increases from $36.90 per acre to $55.44 per acre. And then the residential rates would be a 40% increase. Though that's a high percentage increase, it equates to about $5.28 per quarter. So our average residential user would see a $21.12 increase over the year. These rates, if approved, would go into effect with our May 1st, 2025 billing.
All right. Anybody have any questions of Ms. Hanson?
So, Mr. Mayor?
Councilmember Geisler?
We've spent an awful lot of time with our friends from Ellers and looked at this, and it is an enterprise fund, and we need to make sure that it can fund all of the work that needs to happen. So with that, make a motion to adopt Resolution 24-111, amending the adopted 2025 fee schedule and stormwater utility fees.
Second.
Motion by Geisler and a second by Griscoviac. Further discussion on this?
Mr. Mayor?
Councilmember Griscoviac?
While we use Ellers, we don't just rubber stamp everything that comes from them. We did really look at all of this. And the big reason for the change and the reason that we need to do this is it's a fund that needs to remain solvent. And right now it wouldn't remain solvent primarily because of a lot of mandates coming down from the state for clean water and storm during Coon Creek Watershed District and others with projects that we have in the city. So this really is necessary to finance those projects and to keep our system in top shape.
Thank you. Is there any other discussion? Hearing none, we all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? And that motion carries. Item 15 is to consider a letter of engagement for 2025 sanitary sewer lining project 25-4. Mr. Hammer?
Mr. Mayor, I'm going to defer to City Engineer Mark Hanson.
Mr. Hanson?
Mr. Hemmer, Mayor, and Council, as you said, this is for a letter of engagement for our 2025 sanitary, large diameter sanitary sewer lining project referred to as 25-1. So this project is going to continue where we left off on Hanson Boulevard, south of Mississippi Boulevard. We're going to line up to Mississippi Boulevard and then head west to approximately the Riverview Ditch crossing. The letter of engagement will encompass the design services and the investigations of the sewer pipe necessary for the plan preparation and the specifications, bidding administration, and construction assistance and administration. The project itself would be proposed to move forward in 2025, summer of 2025.
Okay.
So very similar to what we have done in past several years.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilmember Rayrauer?
I make a motion to approve a letter of engagement with SEH under its master consulting agreement in the amount of $164,010 for the 2025 sanitary sewer lining project management and authorize staff to execute such agreement.
Second.
Motion by Rayrauer and a second by, gosh, I think it was Carlson, wasn't it? Yeah. Discussion? Mr. Hanson, and the beauty of doing the lining like this is we don't have to mess with the reconstructed Mississippi Boulevard, correct?
The intersection of Hanson Boulevard and Mississippi Boulevard will likely need to be excavated in order to pick up some of the the sewer lines that we have coming from Hanson Boulevard and connecting into that intersection.
Okay.
But the side streets, as we go west, we would try to we would pick up that flow north of Mississippi, the manhole upstream.
Okay, very good.
So
All right.
every effort will be made to minimize excavation to Mississippi.
All right, yeah, because that gets a lot of use for cars and pedestrians, bicyclists. All right, is there any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? And that motion carries. And item 16, what brings our Director of Golf out in the middle of the winter, is consider approval of a purchase of new golf cart fleet and golf cart GPS units from Versatile Vehicles. Mr. Anderson.
Mayor, Council, thank you. I'm delighted to be here. Winter just represents the beginning of us looking forward to spring. But I'm delighted to be here, certainly asking for and recommending the purchase of a new golf cart fleet in the form of a lease to own and the lease of golf cart GPS units from Versatile Vehicles. So, golf carts at a golf course certainly are a need, and the current golf cart fleet at Bunker Hills, the batteries, would not make it probably into a month of next season. So we definitely need a new cart fleet. This fleet represents, if approved, a gigantic leap forward because they would have lithium-ion batteries. Those batteries are 300 pounds less per cart, a lot less damage to the golf course, and with how busy Bunker Hills is, and we certainly intended to keep it that way, there will be a lot less turf damage because of this. They charge faster and use up to 40% less energy, which obviously is fantastic for us. In regards to the golf cart GPS units, that's becoming more of an expectation in the golf space. These GPS units are proprietary to EasyGo. They are fantastic, especially in regards to our opportunity to pre-order concessions, to geofence the golf course, which means to protect the sensitive areas of the golf course around the greens, et cetera, and to have advertising. Imagine you have a corporate event or a charity event partnering with us that day. Your sponsor signs can be digital, and there are all kinds of enhancements in addition to that. So while GPS is becoming an expectation, we certainly plan on exceeding expectations if approved by fully utilizing that technology at Bunker Hills. To go back to the lease to own option, in discussing that among city staff, we do believe that is the way to go. With lithium-ion batteries, where the water-filled batteries would last up to 4 years, which is what we got out of the last fleet, we're guaranteed through warranty that the lithium-ion batteries will last 5 years and may last longer, and that's why a lease-to-own, we believe, is the best option, because we may not come back in the space in 5 years and recommend. We may get that 6th year, which would be certainly a benefit. If we don't, and we end up only getting 5 years, we believe that those carts will still have a lot of value and can be sold back, traded in, et cetera.
Mr. Anderson, where do we store those in the winter? Because I thought lithium batteries couldn't freeze.
Well, they won't, and that's, one of the fantastic things of the Bunker Hills facility is we have underground storage that is semi-heated.
Oh.
Certainly to the standard of keeping these batteries nice and safe and sound.
Oh, nice. Okay, anybody have any questions of Mr. Anderson?
Mr. Mayor,
Councilmember Geisler?
make a motion to authorize purchase of new golf carts and golf cart GPS units with versatile vehicles, easy go.
Second.
We have a motion by Geisler and a second by Ray Rauer. Is there further discussion?
Mr. Mayor?
Councilmember Griscoviac?
It's a lot of money, but I think it really makes sense because I'm sure this is 100% funded by user fees. People rent these carts, they pay for it, they're paying for it here. It creates a better draw for the golf course that's already doing a great amount of business, so it makes sense for the city to do this. I like the fact that we have the option to buy at the end of the lease if these things really go well, extend these for 10 years.
There's our fiscal conservative.
Wishful thinking.
Your Honor?
Councilmember Novak?
This absolutely makes sense. Correct me if I'm wrong, but this is one of the few city-owned golf courses that actually is profitable.
Well, it breaks even, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
It's an
okay.
enterprise fund, so.
Well, yeah, but
Mr. Anderson, was it just a week and a half ago there were golfers out on the executive course yet? I thought when I left there a week ago Monday, there were golfers out there.
Mayor, Council, it's been a bit of a stop-start, but we like to keep that executive course open, we say all year. Every once in a while, we'll pull the pins if we have a foot of snow, but we'll put them back as soon as possible, sometimes needing a torch to get them back in the ground, frankly. But we did have a couple brave souls out there, and they wanted to check that the 12th box, because they played in January all the way through December and got their December round in, so that was what was happening.
Oh, nice, okay.
We were glad to take their greens fee.
Yeah.
Last week.
crazy.
All right. You know what, I'm sorry, I've got a motion. Who was the second on that?
Ray Rauer.
Was there a second?
Ray Rauer.
Ray Rauer? Okay, all right. Okay, is there further discussion on this? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? And that motion carries. Mr. Anderson, you going to be with us till the end of the meeting?
Mayor, Council, yes, I will.
I'll come back to you in other business then. All right. Item 17 is to consider Resolution 24-109, approving the 2025 compensation plan for unrepresented employees. Ms. Roth.
Mayor and Council, good evening. Nice to see you tonight. This resolution is being presented in compliance with City Code Section 3-301, which requires the annual presentation of a compensation plan to City Council. City staff requests that the City Council adopt resolution establishing the 2025 compensation plan for unrepresented employees. The compensation plan includes the following: a wage schedule for full-time and regular part-time employees with 24 pay grades and 9 steps within each pay grade. Each salary range minimum is approximately 75% of the range maximum. A wage schedule for variable, hourly, and part-time positions. This scale will provide for consistency across the organization for hourly employees, part-time employees, and regular full-time employees. The 2025 wage schedule for unrepresented position includes a 3.5% wage increase effective January 1, 2025. This is consistent with what we bargained and got approved with our represented folks. The detail of the min and max of the pay ranges were included in a memo. If you have any questions at this time, I'd be happy to answer them.
Very good. Any questions?
Mr. Mayor,
Councilmember Rayrauer.
I make a motion to adopt Resolution 24-109, establishing the 2025 compensation plan for unrepresented employees.
Second.
Motion by Rayrauer, second by Geisler. Is there discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that motion carries. Thank you very much. Item 18 is to consider Resolution 24-115, amending the 2025 fee schedule to add registration fees for cannabis businesses. Ms. Lensmeyer?
Mr. Mayor and Council, the request is for an amendment to the fee schedule to include registration fees for cannabis businesses. We will expect that to come online here in 2025, and so the resolution outlines what the proposal is, and those figures come right out of the statute, so we're just asking you to approve what we're essentially required to approve.
All right.
So, Mr. Mayor,
Councilmember Geisler?
I'll make a motion to adopt Resolution 24-115, amending the adopted 2025 fee schedule to add registration fees for cannabis businesses.
Second.
Motion by Geisler and a second by Armstrong. Is there discussion?
Mr. Mayor, just as a reminder to folks, earlier this year, we consolidated and created this one large fee structure. So there's one place to go for the fees, and now we have a new one. We're just adding it to the list.
Any other discussion?
Mr. Mayor,
Councilmember Griscoviac?
are these the maximum fees that we could charge by state statute?
Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Griscoviac, that is correct.
Okay, because they seem low compared to liquor licenses, so.
Yes, they
Pointing
do.
that out to maybe our elected officials at the state legislature.
All right. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
That motion carries. One no, Councilmember Novak. Item 19 is to adopt Resolution 24-116, approving the solar on public buildings grant contracts. Ms. Hovland.
Mr. Mayor, council members, we first brought this opportunity to you last spring. This is a state grant program designed to support the installation of solar on public buildings. With your support, we applied for the grant for 2 city-owned buildings and received an award for each of them. As part of the grant approval process, we put the projects out for bid and selected a contractor. After submitting final project specifications, we were officially approved for the grant awards. The next step is to authorize the grant contracts with the state, and then once that is complete, we can bring the construction contracts forward to you in the new year.
Anybody have any questions on this?
Mr. Mayor.
Councilmember Rayrauer?
Thank you. I unofficially just want to make this in honor of Deanne Christensen, who passed away and was very much in support of City Solar, and also former Mayor Lonnie McCauley, who has passed away and was also very much in support of City Solar. And with that, I would like to make a motion to adopt Resolution 24-116, approving the solar on buildings grant contracts and accepting the grant money.
Second.
Motion by Rayrauer and a second by Novak. Is there further discussion on this?
Your Honor.
Councilmember Novak?
Olivia, you and I have discussed this several times, and I notice here that Fire Station 3 was actually approved. One of the things that I talked to you about was the possibility of getting this same type of project here at City Hall on top of the fire station, so that in an emergency, power gets cut off, they would still have power to function. Is there any possibility of that type of thing in the future?
Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Novak, the Solar for Public Buildings grant program by the state is limited to buildings in Xcel Energy territory. So there are only a few city buildings that are geographically eligible. The City Hall is in Connexus Energy territory, and there is not currently a state grant program for that service territory. So any solar project for City Hall would be an independent thing.
But correct me if I'm wrong, this solar project at Fire Station 3 would keep it powered, even if the rest of the grid were to go down.
Well, we have a generator for that. It's our EOC, right?
Well, the generator's great, but it requires gasoline. And again, I just want to see that this is actually doing what we want it to do. Not that I disagree with it. I think it's fantastic.
Yeah, Mayor Council, I was just going to make the point that we would rely on the generators for direct power to the buildings, just given the nature of these buildings in particular. These aren't going to generate enough to power the buildings themselves. They're going to sort of theoretically offset the amount of energy that, we sort of get credit for the power we're generating. So it wouldn't be enough to operate either facility. In those cases, we really do need those diesel generators to kick in to make those work.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Mayor?
Councilmember Raybrower?
Yeah, I'd just like to add, we looked at different things, including power purchase agreements in the past, which was more money up front. And I just want to say a huge thank you to Ms. Darrow Hovland for doing the work and finding this grant and getting this going forward, because the amount of money this is going to cost the city is very low, and we will be making money, which offsets then our taxpayer dollars over time. So this really is a great benefit to the city and our taxpayers.
We have a motion and a second on this, right? Okay, I thought so.
Mr. Mayor?
Councilmember Griscoviac?
It says that, I'm totally in favor of this, especially since it's, 80% or so subsidized by these grants, and we're getting solar, clean energy out of it. I think it's a great deal. Says staff will bring construction contracts to the city council. So when we look at those, is the city then going to own these panels and the infrastructure at the end of the day, or is this a lease type situation, or is that forthcoming?
Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Griscoviac, at the end of this process, the city will own these systems.
Got it. Okay.
Okay. All right, we have a motion and a second. Do we have any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? And that motion carries. Item 20 is to consider MnDOT agreements for design and construction costs of the Coon Creek Regional Trail Pedestrian Bridge, Project 24-6. Mr. Hanson.
Yes, Mayor and Council, before you tonight are two agreements with the Minnesota Department of Transportation that staff have worked out. This is to use funds from the Local Road Improvement Program, which will administer the grant funds that were appropriated by the state legislature in 2023. So in 2023, the legislature appropriated $3.5 million in general funds for the grant for construction of the Coon Rapids, or the Coon Creek Regional Trail Pedestrian Bridge over Coon Rapids Boulevard. As you know, that project's been under construction. The project will be wrapping up here for the season on December 20th, so Friday this week, and then we'll pause for a while and come back in March. So the grant, the LRIP grant funds that we're talking about here tonight, that the agreements are before you for approval, are going to pay for the design, the construction administration, as well as a portion of the construction as well. And then federal funds are also paying for the remaining portion of construction. So with that, I'll answer any questions that the council may have.
Any questions from Mr. Hanson?
Your Honor,
Councilmember Novak?
I move to approve the MnDOT Local Road Improvement Program grant agreements, the associated resolutions for the Coon Creek Regional Trail Pedestrian Bridge.
Second.
Motion by Novak and a second by Raybrower. Is there discussion on this?
Mr. Mayor, just a note that, we had a nice work session on this just last week, so we went over all this, and it's really coming together nicely. So great collaboration with all the different groups and with the city here. Appreciate that.
All right. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? And that motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Hanson. Open mic. We are at the open mic portion of the meeting. Is anybody here to address council for open mic this evening? Yeah, there we go. Coming up to the AMBO. Open mic provides an opportunity for the public to address the city council on subjects that are not part of the regular meeting agenda. You are invited to express any concerns you may have which are relevant to the affairs, policies, or practices of the city of Coon Rapids. Remarks will be limited to 3 minutes. Please approach the podium, state your name and address.
Hi there,
Yes, sir.
Derek Leffert, Head of Government Affairs for Gateway Fiber. Don't have an address in the city, but we're actively building and, as part of our efforts to be transparent with the city and make sure that we're continuing to stay invested in the city, we always take an opportunity to visit with elected officials, work with the staff that's doing a great job with our folks. I do have some meetings set up with some other individuals, but we basically stopped construction for the year, as you guys can imagine. In our Minnesota builds, we've put in about 2 million feet of conduit in various different spots. Here in Coon Rapids, I believe we've gotten about 4,000 passings this year, with an estimate that we'll probably do 5,000 to 6,000 passings next year. So it's going very, very well. We've had a lot of great support from the community, and we greatly appreciate that. I do know that there has been a few complaints, and we certainly expect that any kind of utility build, there's going to be some complaints. I will tell you that if there's any issues that remain unresolved, I know that there's probably some that are still out there kind of lingering because of the weather, but we promise that we'll take care of those. Those are all potential customers for us, and we certainly want to make sure that we get those resolved. So,
Derek, what was the word you used? You said 4,000 something this year?
passings. So passings is what we refer to, like if we go past a house or a business.
Okay.
That's what we use. So
Passings.
yeah. So that's 4,000 plus here in Coon Rapids, with an expectation of 5,000 to 6,000 next year.
Okay. Yeah, I think some of the bigger problems this year has been the cleanup afterwards.
Yeah.
When you accidentally cut that CenturyLink wire, and then it takes them a month and a half to reconnect somebody's phone.
Yeah, no, I understand that, and, obviously our goal is not to do that. I will say that in terms of damages, for the utility damages, they've been exceedingly low in terms of like the at-fault damages that we have. We have crews that go out in advance of our crews actually doing the construction, and they try to make sure to identify issues so that they don't run into those. So I think all totaled here in Coon Rapids, I want to say we've only had probably 3 or 4 at-fault damages that I'm aware of, which is very, very low, considering the amount of footage that we're putting in the ground. So,
Yeah, no kidding.
just wanted to take an opportunity to say thanks to the council. If you guys have any constituent questions, concerns, I know that some of them have been reaching out to you guys, and then maybe some of the staff as well, but you're always welcome to defer those to me, and I'll be happy to get with our team and figure out what the issue is and get it resolved as best we can.
So basically we should be at 9,000 to 10,000 passings by the end of next year.
That's our plan.
And so that's like half of Coon Rapids, or close to half then?
Yeah, and then, we try to not scale quickly. We try to do it in, obviously there's limited resources with the city, there's limited locating resources. So that's why we do it that way. But, certainly the more uptake that we get, the more we can build, and certainly the more we're willing to build. So that's kind of our plans at this point.
Excellent. Anybody have any questions of Derek while he's here?
All right, thank you, guys.
Councilmember Brown, hang on, Councilmember Armstrong's got his hand up.
Just one quick question.
Yeah.
As far as the process or the plan goes, are you basically working like west to east, north to south?
As far as Coon Rapids is concerned, I'm not really sure what the specific plan is. I'd have to go back and get with our construction folks on, what the layout is. We do try to do what we call bolt-ons, so we'll build one, and I think there's 22 neighborhoods that we have planned in 2025. So I can get those specific neighborhoods for you guys so that you have them. But we generally try to do what we call bolt-ons, so we'll get one, and then the next one, then we'll get the next one, so we can kind of build out. So that's kind of how we do it.
Okay.
Makes sense.
Yeah, but I can get specifics for you guys as far as which ones are coming up.
Appreciate it.
Thank you very
All
much.
right, thanks, guys.
Thanks, Derek. Anybody else here to address council for open mic this evening? All right, then we will. Oh, yes, sir. You state your name and address, and you've got 3 minutes to address the council, sir.
Todd Lutman, 10559 Martin Street. I've weighed coming here quite a bit because I'm losing faith in police, law enforcement. They've treated me with disrespect, unprofessionalism. When I have a neighbor walk across the street and start digging in my yard, walk across the city street to dig in my yard. I called to have him trespassed. The officer showed up. Disrespect. Put his hand up. You're done. I called in a complaint to Chief Steiner. The result of that, next day I had a city plow truck tearing up my front yard, requested by him. I had somebody try to maim my dog with a weed whip. No, we're not doing anything. Tree fell from somebody else's property, and a neighbor threw everything in my backyard. Wasn't my tree to begin with. Threw it in my backyard. I tried to file a complaint. I was argued with, and no complaint was filed. I was told that I'm not an attorney, I don't know the laws. The tree company, people I talk to, I think they know the legal limits because they do this every day. That's their business. They should know the laws. I just argued with until I just gave up and walked away. I mean, it's being disrespected, allowing things to happen, allowing, it to go farther, people get emboldened and go farther and farther, like the neighbor that tried taking a weed whip to my dog's face for barking. I mean, that's animal cruelty. And if you don't actually charge anybody for animal cruelty or at least give them a ticket, I mean, what are they there for? I know they have a hard job. Trust me, I have a lot of relatives that are law enforcement officers. My boy is a law enforcement officer. I mean, the way that I've been dealt with is very disrespectful. And like I said, it just emboldens people to go farther and farther. So I think there needs to be some retraining.
Well, staff will look at this and they'll give you a letter back and they'll let us know what's going on.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Anybody else here to address council for open mic this evening? All right. We will close the open mic portion of the meeting. I don't have any reports on any previous open mics. And under other business, we have a couple council members who this is their last night.
Yeah. It's amazing.
I thought, boy, we have a lot of people for open mic. No, I don't think so. And I would like to go on record as saying that council member-elect told me it'd be a 90-minute meeting, and he about nailed it, so.
Yeah.
Yes,
Mr. Mayor?
Councilmember Ray Rower.
I was just wondering, Councilmember Geisler, if you noticed, I was trying to beat you on how many motions we made tonight for our last night.
It's kind of tradition, the last meeting, that you get all the motions, so, we had to share them, However, I actually had one resident call me once, and they're like, why do you make all the motions? And it was like, well, sometimes it's just, there's dead silence, and it's just easier to move things forward. So I will challenge my peers, to make sure that they're stepping up and filling that motion void, for the next year.
Pay attention to that, please. The meeting gets really quiet and long when nobody makes motions.
So, Mr. Mayor, I would just like to thank Mr. Stemolo for his leadership of the city, and say that I've been here 10 years, and it's just, I think the city is very well managed. And then if I look at everybody out here in the audience from the staff, fabulous staff. And I've worked with most all of you for, a good portion of that 10 years. And some of you are newer, but you've got a phenomenal team. And I appreciate everything that each one of you do for the city. And I think it's that the city is a nice place to be. And I think we've really worked hard on making, it we're not doing things to residents, we're with residents, and it's more of a customer service and a community atmosphere within the city, and that's because of our staff and what we do, and the majority of the time that we're doing everything. So I've enjoyed my time here. I will be passing off, it'll be a familiar name to folks. I was saying Ms. Lensmeyer won't even have to get a new envelope.
That's true.
But, so I appreciate the time, and it's my last meeting. Amazing. So,
Mr. Mayor?
Councilmember Ray Rower.
Yeah, to follow that up, I would say ditto on everything that Councilmember Geisler said. Outstanding staff, just amazing. When I think back to before I ran for council, I was a busy mom, teaching science all day at secondary level, and then coming home and running my kids to soccer and hockey practices. But then you know what happens? Kids grow up and they got driver's licenses, and all of a sudden I had a lot more free time than I did before that, and wanted to get involved locally and give back to the community that I've lived in for 24 years now. So ran for city council, and I'm just so glad that I did. I've learned so much in 4 years from all of the amazing staff who do a phenomenal job running the city. You really, really do. You're the ones that do the work. We're here on the TV, and we have the oversight and the final vote, but the work is done by the staff, and you really should be very proud of all of yourselves, and managed well by our city manager. And I've learned a ton from all of my fellow council members and my mayor, and just following all of, how you do things, the professional way that you run these meetings, and, are just looking forward. I just appreciate all of you. And know that I'm not going far. I'll still be serving our community and all the people of Minnesota at the Minnesota House of Representatives. And so I'll be reaching out to all of you, and as we work together on projects moving forward, such as projects we want, like the 610 interchange with East River Road. And so I just want to say a huge thank you. Thank you to all the residents of Coon Rapids. Thank you to the staff. Thank you to my council members and mayor. And a huge thank you to Ward 2 for electing me to this seat. It was a huge honor.
Very good. So I made this awkward because I jumped to item 21 because normally other business is last, but we still have other business to do yet. So how do you want to do this?
Well, if you say, Mr. Mayor, because I always have other business, and somebody else is going to have to pick up that mantle. Because if you didn't know, our lighting contest winners were announced. And so if you go to the city website, you can go check out the winners, and there's a map with all the different houses with the lights that you can go drive around. On Thursday, the 19th, you can meet our licensed social worker at the Coon Rapids branch of the Anoka County Library. So lots of things that are always happening within the city, and we'll go and do that. And I think you probably want to talk about the tree lighting, which was last Saturday, which was wonderful.
Yeah.
I'll let you, I was in Mexico, so.
Oh. We weren't.
Yes.
Yeah, so we had the tree lighting last Saturday, and it was fabulous. And I just want to take a moment to thank all of the folks that were involved in that. Community Strength Foundation, Magnify Financial, Nest to Threads Boutique Marketplace was in there with 300 ornaments. Thank you. I got decoration in my head, and I couldn't go back to ornaments. And they ran out, just before the end of it, so next year they plan on bringing 600. The Holiday Light Company that put the 8,000 to 10,000 lights on the tree, Together Productions, who braved the 29-degree weather to play the guitar and the piano out there on the stage. I think I already mentioned the Community Strength Foundation, Coon Rapids Rotary Club, Coon Rapids Fire Department Community Fund, Coon Rapids Firecracker Races, Coon Rapids Lowe's. These are all sponsors, Jack Couch and Family, JD Roofing and Construction. And helping us out that night was the Coon Rapids Nordic Ski Team, the Coon Rapids Royal Ambassador Program, And a big thank you to the city of Coon Rapids, the staff. Stephanie led the city side of that, and we had folks from Public Works, from Fire, from Police, the Ice Center, Bill Ganser, and the Ice Center is always so gracious and just takes care of so many things for us. Particular shout out to the tree lighting committee led by Tiffany Fick, who just does a yeoman's job, and and it was a fabulous night. It was a Currier and Ives hallmark moment of the 6 bonfires, the fireworks. It was all spectacular, and more people than we've ever had there. It was wonderful. And then the tree donors, Coon Rapids residents, the Howard and Nienaber family. It was a beautiful tree, and they were up on stage with their kids, and it was terrific. Okay, are we good on that?
I think we're good on that.
All right.
Mr.
Any other
Mayor?
business?
I just wanted to comment really quick, like, that was one of the few events that I've been to when the clock hit 0, those lights went off. Nothing stopped that tree from going up.
Yeah, thanks for reminding me of that. So what I learned the very first year was as soon as you get on stage, you turn the clock around so nobody can see it. It was behind a tree, and I got distracted thinking I had plenty of time. The countdown, all of a sudden I'm in the middle of my announcements, and I hear people out on the ground going, 5, 4, and I'm going, oh no, here we go. So I just had to stop talking. The tree lit up, and then I finished the announcements after the 5 or 8 minutes of fireworks. But it was, yes.
It was great.
Yeah.
The crowd loved it.
Yeah.
They appreciated your improvisation.
Yep. Next year, that'll be actually a designated role. Turn the clock off.
Yeah.
All right. Any other business come before council? Yes, yes.
Oh,
Well, I
Mr.
figured,
Mayor,
I was
Mr. Mayor.
actually gonna wait until the end of other business and then have them come up front and, and then, yes.
So one more piece of other business here.
Yes, sir.
I didn't want to be outdone by the mayor's Festivus tie and shirt, so I figured I would jump in here, and since we got Christmas next year, I just wanted to wish everyone a Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays, and everyone has a great season here. It's been a great year, and really looking forward to 2025 with everybody.
All right. Excellent. Do we want to have them go up front?
Yeah,
and
we
take-
should.
Yeah,
Yeah, we should.
yeah. Councilmembers Rayrauer and Geisler, you should go up front and receive your signs. Mr. Stemmettle, you should actually present those, shouldn't you?
Oh, well, I mean, we can do it
Or Ms.
together.
Lensmeyer, or?
Come on, take the picture. Do you want the microphone?
All right, well, it's my pleasure to present street signs. This is our tradition for outgoing city council members, to present them with street signs. So this year we let them choose sort of how they wanted their street sign to look. So we have Rayrauer Road. Rayrauer Road. So Councilman Rayrauer, I present that to you. And then the other one is Geisler Way, which it feels intentional, Geisler Way.
It was a family vote.
Yeah.
The right way to look at it, so.
And I wanted to just add another R to make it,
Alliteration always works. On behalf of staff, thank you so much for your dedication to the city and all the work that we've done together during your respective terms, and I look forward to working with you both in other capacities in the near future. So, thank you.
So then, Mr. Mayor?
Oh, hang on. Just before you do that, I made Mr. Anderson stay here
yes.
so he could give us an update on the golf course and the shows, what's going on. You never come to see us anymore.
Well, no, it's like I said, it's a pleasure to come here and ask for money. So I better tell you how we're gonna pay for those golf carts. And you know, just because it's winter doesn't mean it's not exciting at Bunker Hills. And Oak Crud, It's Christmas is up and running with the Seasons Dinner Theater. We've had many shows. I peek my head in there every once in a while, lots of laughs and people having fun, near sellouts. So far, there are tickets available after Christmas, so please go to seasonsdinnertheater.com and look into that. And we have a bustling golf simulator center and restaurant as well. So please come up and see us in the middle of winter here, but I can promise you spring is right around the corner.
It's always around the corner there.
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you. Okay, now, Councilmember Geisler,
I would make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
motion by Councilmember Geisler, second by Councilmember Rayrauer to adjourn. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. We are adjourned.